Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that was come upon him, they came every one from his own place, Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, for they had made an appointment together to come to mourn with him and to comfort him. And when they lifted up their eyes afar off and knew him not, they lifted up their voice and wept, and they rent every one his mantle and sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven. So they sat down with him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw that his grief was very great. After this Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. And Job spoke and said, May the day perish on which I was born, and the night in which it was said, A male child is conceived. May that day be darkness. May God above not seek it, nor the light shine upon it. May darkness and the shadow of death claim it. May a cloud settle on it. May the blackness of the day terrify it. As for that night, may darkness seize it. May it not rejoice among the days of the year. May it not come into the number of the months. Oh, may that night be barren. May no joyful shout come into it. May those curse it who curse the day, those who are ready to arouse Leviathan. May the stars of its morning be dark. May it look for light, but have none, and not see the dawning of the day, because it did not shut up the doors of my mother's womb, nor hide sorrow from my eyes. Why did I not die at birth? Why did I not perish when I came from the womb? Why did the knees receive me, or why the breasts that I should nurse? For now I would have lain still and been quiet. I would have been asleep. Then I would have been at rest, with kings and counselors of the earth, who built ruins for themselves, or with princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver. Or why was I not hidden like a stillborn child, like infants who never saw light? There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary are at rest. There the prisoners rest together. They do not hear the voice of the oppressor. The small and great are there, and the servant is free from his master. Why is light given to him who is in misery, and life to the bitter of soul, who long for death, but it does not come, and search for it more than hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly, and are glad when they can find the grave? Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, and whom God has hedged in? For my sighing comes before I eat, and my groanings pour out like water. For the thing I greatly feared has come upon me, and what I dreaded has happened to me. I am not at ease, nor am I quiet. I have no rest, for trouble comes. Eliphaz the Temanite made the longest journey. He came from Teman, a city in the land of Edom, south of the Dead Sea, in the territory that belonged to the descendants of Esau. And here the genealogy on this chart closes a circle, because Eliphaz was not a stranger to Job's bloodline. He was the son of Esau, which made him the first cousin of Job's own father, Issachar, the son of Jacob. These were not distant acquaintances who heard a rumor and felt obligated to visit. Eliphaz was family. He was the elder. He was the one whose very name and title, the Temanite, traced back to his own grandfather's house. When he arrived at the ash heap where Job sat, he was looking at his cousin's son. He knew exactly what this family was before the fire fell. Bildad the Shuhite came from Shuah, a region associated with the descendants of Abraham's son by Keturah, the sons Abraham sent eastward after Isaac was born, settling in the Arabian desert territories. Bildad carried in his veins the memory of Abraham, the same patriarch who stands near the top of this genealogy. He and Job shared a common root deeper than either of them could fully trace. And Zophar the Naamathite came from Naamah, a place in Arabia, or possibly the far reaches of Canaan, depending on the tradition consulted. 3 men, 3 different directions, 1 appointment. They had planned this together before any of them left home. And they came because the news was the kind of news that makes a man stop what he is doing and walk toward the grief rather than away from it. When they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him. That detail is not incidental. This was a man they knew, a man of reputation, of weight, of presence, and from a distance, sitting in the ashes, covered in boils from the crown of his head to the soles of his feet, He looked like no one they had ever met. They had to look twice. They had to look again, and when the recognition came, it broke them open. They tore their robes. They threw dust into the air above their heads. They wept, and then they sat down on the ground beside him and did not say a single word for 7 days and 7 nights. 7 days of silence. That is not awkwardness. That is not confusion about what to say. In the ancient Near East, 7 days was the prescribed period of mourning for the dead. These men were sitting Shiva with a man who was still breathing. They were treating his suffering with the same weight they would have given his funeral. There is no greater honor one human being can offer another than to sit in the wreckage with them and not try to fix it with words. They were not silent because they had nothing to say. They were silent because they understood that whatever they said would be smaller than what he was enduring. The silence was the sermon, and for 7 days it was the right one. Then Job opened his mouth, and what came out was not a prayer. It was not a complaint filed with heaven. It was a curse against the day he was born, against the night he was conceived, against every star that witnessed his arrival into the world. He wanted the calendar itself to forget that day existed. He called for the darkness to swallow it, for the dawn never to find it, for the sorcerers who specialize in waking ancient terrors to rouse Leviathan, the great chaos creature of the deep, to devour that date from the record of time. And here is where you have to slow down and hear what Job is actually saying, because the surface reading and the true reading are not the same thing. Job is not asking to die. He never asks God to kill him. He never makes a plan. He never moves toward the exit. What he is doing is something far more human and far more precise. He is wishing the suffering had never begun. He is not rejecting life. He is rejecting pain. Every image he reaches for, the stillness of the womb, the quiet of the grave, the rest of kings who built their tombs and lay down in them, is an image of peace, not of annihilation. He is a man who is exhausted beyond language, trying to describe what it feels like when the body will not stop screaming and the mind cannot find a single hour of quiet. Even the Leviathan reference tells you everything. A man who truly wanted death would not need a sea monster to devour a date on the calendar. He would simply stop. But Job is not stopping. He is fighting. He is raging against the clock with every metaphor he can find, which is exactly what people do when they still believe, somewhere beneath the ash and the silence, that the clock matters. You do not curse a day you do not still feel the weight of. You do not call for Leviathan unless part of you still believes the story could have gone differently. And then he says the line that unlocks the whole speech. He says the thing he greatly feared has come upon him. Not a random catastrophe, not bad luck, something he had feared. Which means Job had carried this dread before the fire fell, before the messenger came running, before the silence of friends on the ground. There was something in Job that knew this was possible, and he never ran from it. He stayed, he worshipped, he interceded for his children every morning. He built the hedge with his own prayers and kept building it, even while a part of him knew that one day the wind might come from the wilderness and the hedge might not hold. Now, here is where the story turns on something most readers pass over too quickly. Job's children were not living in unity. They feasted together, yes, 7 sons rotating the celebration from house to house. But Job rose early every morning to offer burnt offerings for each of them, because he said in his heart, "It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Job 1:5. He was not interceding out of abundance. He was interceding out of anxiety. He was a father watching his children and seeing something that worried him, something beneath the surface of the feasting that he could not name but could not ignore. And that worry, that daily return to the altar, driven not by faith but by the dread that something was wrong. That was the crack in the wall, not in Job's character, not in Job's righteousness. in Job's rest. Fear and faith cannot occupy the same space. They are not opposites the way hot and cold are opposites, where one simply reduces the other. They are opposites the way a locked door and an open door are opposites. Faith shuts the access. Fear opens it. Proverbs 26:2 says, "A curse without cause shall not alight. It cannot land where there is no place for it to land. But fear prepares the landing strip." The writer of Job himself gives us the mechanism. "For the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me." Job 3:25. This is not coincidence. This is not Job confessing a minor worry. The Hebrew word used for greatly feared carries the weight of a dread that had taken up residence, a fear that had become a posture, a daily orientation, a lens through which he watched his children come and go from those feasts. And Isaiah 54:14 names the principle plainly from the other side. "In righteousness shalt thou be established. Thou shalt be far from oppression, for thou shalt not fear, and from terror, for it shall not come near thee." The promise is not merely that the righteous will be protected. It is that fear is the very thing that allows terror to come near. Remove the fear, and terror loses its address. This is what Satan saw when he stood before God and accused Job. Not wickedness, not hidden sin. He saw a gap, a man whose hands were clean, but whose heart was bracing for impact. The hedge God had built around Job 1:10 was real and it was formidable, but a hedge has gates, and gates respond to what is standing on the inside pressing against them. Job's fear of what his children might have done in those feast houses, his daily sacrifices driven by dread rather than declaration, his love curdled at the edges into anxiety. These were not moral failures. They were spiritual vulnerabilities, and the adversary who walks about as a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour, 1 Peter 5:8, does not need much of a gap. He just needs one. That is not a man who wants to die. That is a man who wanted to live so badly he was afraid of losing it. He loved his children so completely that the love bent toward fear, and the fear bent toward the very outcome he could not stop imagining. And when he lost it anyway, he sat in the ashes and told the truth about how much it cost him. He did not deny God. He did not curse God. He cursed a day. He raged at a calendar. He called for monsters. And underneath all of it, in the part of him that was still standing, he was waiting, not for death, but for an answer, which is, it turns out, the only honest place to begin.